Life inaweza feel kala ana, ikose hata maana. Uquestion maulana, mbona bado unang'ang'ana? Madeals zimegongana na bibi umegombana na marafiki umekosana na Eko nene, ikiwa ni episode 159 na saizi tuko na like one of the most requested guests. Tuko na Pastor T. Pastor T ni aje jo?
Niko fiti mazee.
So vile nilikudungia simu majuzi umeniambia mimi na wewe tuko tushapitana siku za rap.
Wewe ndio ulikuwa legend, si tulikuwa upcoming. Tulikuwa tunakusikia kwa freestyle, Ghetto Radio, my event ni. Unajua hiyo time na watu wachache sana wange freestyle. Unajua kuna freestyle na kuna song umeandika alafu unaipiga design ya free. So at least hiyo time ndio ulikuwa na mimi si tulikuwa upcoming.
Afu ulikuwa ga UN.
Nilikuwa UN.
Uko na study?
Tulikuwa tunakutambua sana geology.
Uko na study geology.
Study ya kwa G.
Alafu pia ulikuwa nakutokea wapi?
Nilikuwa natokea wapi? Pale najua pale ndio wase wenye walikuwa napenda hip hop hiyo time. Hapo ndio ulikuwa unapata authentic rappers nini. Tulikuwa tunafanya gospel. But hiyo time wapi ilikuwa more of conscious rap, unajua society nini wasana go through a lot of talent. So tulikuwa tunatokea. Shida ilikuwa wakianza kuakisha kigode.
Inakuwa ni shida. Alafu pia unasema kuna time uliwahi battle mse?
Nishai battle ilikuwa waswa wapi? Kulikuwa na event imeorganiziwa ya human rights. So mimi kama wa Nairobi Uni nikatokea. Ilikuwa freestyle. Unachukua topic kuna freestyle. So tukapiga waswa wakasema aswa wawili watu wako sawa, wacha waingie battle. Wacha battle yamue. Ule boy alikuwa street, alinishughulikia. So alinipiga, alinidiss mara nikamwambia Mungu anakuona.
Na nakumbuka ni nani? Ama kumbuka?
Hata sikumbuki mazee. But alikuwa ametoka wapi? Mimi nilikuwa na crowd yangu, lakini unajua ikifika ni battle kama mchongoano. Unakuta hata mafano wako wanaanza kuchia hiyo side nyingine.
Plus battle get like a little bit disrespectful. So na understand kwa nini unaweza baki umestay away. So before to get into like a whole discussion ile imefanya ukakuja, kuna time safe flani yuko states anaitwa Gaya. Mtu wetu wa nguvu. Alisema nataka kutokea iko nini to discuss the reality of God. So after your discussion watu wali feel like he was too unprepared. So ndio kila mtu akasema wewe ndio unafaa una deserve hiyo nini. But before start to get into that debate, kwa nataka kuuliza una Monday unaonaje, uko worried, uko like what's your views on this coming Monday?
Ile tunaweza sema mtoto mwenye ana understand kitu ina happen globally. Possibly tuko karibu kuingia kwa kitu inaitwa economic crash. Na si Kenya pekee. Hii kitu iko globally. After COVID life ijakuwa the same. Na ukistudy patterns unakuta after pandemics economies wanga zina crash. So sometimes haikuangi ni nani yako power, sometimes inakuanga kuelewa ni nini na happen. The second thing na feel kitu inatuata kingi ka nation ni systems. Unajua kati msee amechukua power anakuanga bound na system. System iko tied kwa constitution. Like tukiangalia mambo ya economic crisis, personally na feel ni kama tunakuanga na tunakuanga na political burden. Na hiyo political burden iko enshrined kwa constitution. So no matter whoever is in power, bado MCA watakuwa, bado MP atakuwa, bado woman rep atakuwa, governor, senator, ma MP. Unakuta hiyo burden ku maintain kila ofisi. There's a lot of political burden. And you see when you sit as a president, hii kitu win politically, lazima kuwe na kitu tunaita political system ya kuriwadwa say when walikupe power.
Especially
so nikiangalia whatever call imekoliwa ya maandamano, it's a genuine call. Wase wana face hunger. Economy konoma, mi kaleo nimeona dollars juu iko 145, hakuna sikuisha ifika hapo. Hiyo ni kumaanisha ina press stories za import export na kila kitu. But sasa tukiangalia Kenya vis-a-vis other nations, una realize we are not special. So mimi naona hiyo maandamano as a political process. Whoever takes power, you are taking power in a frustrated nation. Kama kuna time nilikuwa nafanya research, nilikuwa nimekanisha na mseu mill mahindi. He's a miller in Kenya. Akaniambia kuna mahindi world mzima. Sasa tunangoja TZ wavune ndio tupate mahindi Kenya. Sasa tulikuwa tunangoja consignment toka South Africa because globally hakuna mahindi. So food itakuwa high. juu hakuna harvest, na wenye wame harvest wameshikilia makatel, wanangoja price ipande. Mtu akona mahindi kwa stores, mwekelea ndenga, umwambie iachilie, tuko njaa. So ni political tu, ni chaos ya political system. Yeah,
because I think the scary part, because me the maandamano part siogopi. The scary part ni kuna history ya march to State House.
Okay,
hapo ndio na feel kutakuwa na conflict, but because without that I feel like nothing will happen. Like kutakuwa kuzuri.
Okay, na icheki hivi kuna pain ya kulose. Kuna pain ya kulose, hata si lose ball na una kamtani siku mzima na ni ball. But also tukiangalia power, unajua sword inakuanga imekupa authority kama commander in chief. Hiyo power ile peano in broad daylight, kukiwa na all facets of government, kumaanisha mwenye alihandover power alikuwa contented that huyu ndo the legal president. So ule amekalia kiti akuingia through coup, aliingia through system, either kulibiwa ama kukuibiwa. Verification ya system ni mbaya. Inaonesha undo the sitting president. So any attempt ya kwenda State House ni attempt ya kitu inaitwa coup. Na any attempt ya coup inakuanga sasa ni kama kuitisha bloodbath. I think tumeenjoy a lot of peace as a nation, kitu hatuwezi take for granted. Economies will grow juu ya peace. Naweza kuambia saizi ukienda tu hapa Somalia, they have everything but no peace. Wende tu hapa Ethiopia northern part, wende Sudan, wako na everything not peace. So mi kitu naweza sema ni ati wacha to guard peace, wacha political process ikwe ni ideas, wacha ikwe tuna fight on platforms za ideas, lakini isikwe tuna fight on platform ya kusacrifice generation.
Alafu pia vile umebonga juu peace, na feel ni kama kiasi tumekam ku romanticize war, the fact that tujai go through tumekam kuiromanticize, kwa sasa ufikiriaga ati msee iko na gun atakuwa like huu ni msapere pa, huu ni mjaka pa, msee iko na gun atakuwa kiua tu.
That's true.
Najua like hiyo time hata kutakuwa na even friendly fire, like wase wako on the same side, because people will be scared, people will be like it's not a place we want to go.
That's true. Na tutaenda hiyo naweza kuashua. Juu unacheki ama politician wote ni mamorio. Hiyo ndo kitu tunafaa kujua. Kuna wase walikuwa ODM wakaenda UDA. Wacha nitupeane tu example. Si Mudavadi alikuwa ODM. Sasa si yako UDA. Hiyo time ako ODM, so alikuwa mamorio na Raila. So nataka kuniambia alikosana juu alienda UDA. Bado ni mamorio. Kuna time Ruto alikuwa anga ODM. Kwa hivyo ni mamorio. Hawa ni kama hii ni biashara, ni wasiwana, hii ni power ya negotiation, ni bargain. Lakini politically au bargainingi na mdomo na bargainingi na mbogi. Juu swali inakuanga ni nini unaleta kwa meza, na the only thing unaweza leta kwa meza ni votes, na votes ni watu. So kuna hiyo two part, lazima pia wase wachanuke wajue tuna bargain juu ya watu job zao. All these people have been in power, all of them. So sometimes naangalianga najiuliza hiyo kama huku deliver hiyo time ni maji gani itapensa hizo deliver. So we need to understand we're in a political process. This is part of the political process. Matime tutabeba ujinga, matime tutaona point, matime hizi vitu pia ubadhi vitu poa. But at the end of the day we just need to know it's a political process.
Okay. Alafu nini, kuna kitu nilichekiu msaintwa PLO Lumumba. Alikuwa anasema vile anasoma vitu saizi anaona Monday tao kiasi kuna businesses zitafungua. Uona filaje?
Of course kuna fear. Unajua wakati wasio wamesema ni kuandamana, na tunajua culture ya kuandamana. Kuandamana inakuanga simple. Wasio watafika time wasikie njaa. Wataingia kwa hoteli fulani. Hawa say hakuna msichana walipa. Alafu kuna kuanga na hiyo kitu inaitwa mob psychology. Mob psychology versus one person. Wewe unaona unaanza kufunga kitu, inawaambia huyu msichana ameingiza njeve, so tunaweza attack. See many businesses will not open. Unaweza imagine revenue yenye tutapoteza, economy na kila kitu. So many will not open. And some of these people have nothing to lose. Na kuna kitu mbaya kaa kupishana na mtu akona nothing to lose.
Cause hiyo pia ndio kitu naogopa. Alafu kuna wase tayari wale nilikuwa nachikia wakisema watu kaa sisi wale tuko kwa podcast tuki preach peace, tunaambua you have your little podcast, some of us have nothing to lose. Cause hiyo ni kitu, it's scary to think about it.
Lazima tuelewe philosophy. Nilikuwa South Africa. Ukistudy historia xenophobia, juu South Africa wamepata independence na generation haijadai. So they are almost 31 years after independence. So ni kumaanisha the pain is still alive. So many people wakiwa essay waoji convince tungekuwa mbali isipokuwa ni mlami alituoppress. So kuna kitu wame hold onto, wame anchor their lives onto. sometimes nilikuwa critical na hiyo narrative ya hustler kwa sababu kuna part inaanza kukucomfort na kuambia mimi nimesota juu amesanya. So unakuta tunaanza kuembrace poverty, then hiyo poverty ikitudishi tunataka kuwa ma revolutionalist, tunataka ku overthrow system. Juu unajua systems wanga zi change life overnight. Ni ku set up structure, ku set up strategy, mabarabara, ku improve mausi. That's how you create job opportunities. So tuko na wase wanatafuta overnight success na overnight turnaround na they are very impatient. Naweza sema anwas wako hungry. Na sometimes ukiwa hungry unakuwa angry. And the reality is unaweza take advantage juu politics wanatafutanga what divides and what unites, and sometimes you bank on what hurts so that una star emotions na watu watareact bila kuthink.
Alafu pia unafikiria if business is close, si hapo Raila atakuwa amewin one kuzalisema ni public holiday. So sitakuwa ni public holiday.
Of course hata wakitokea tu tiaga zifungwe. Unajua watu wafungi out of evolution. Sijafunga juu ilitangazwa. Nafunga juu naogopa biashara yangu inaweza go down. Unaweza imagine msema invest for 10 years inaweza take one day wasa wako na malone covid ili to affect. Sasa ndio wasona jaribu ku normalize. So huwezi risk hata uonge kwa na kabiz. Hiyo day tu ungesema acha hii day moja nime close but nisi lose everything yenye nime work for. So but najua pia gava iko na intelligence. Hakuna watu wanga na intelligence ka gava. Kila mtu imepangwa of course wanajua.
But nilicheki ile kitu nani alikuwa amepost uliona Dennis Itumbi. And do you feel that was, if that's true, do you feel it was also good to actually post it?
Alikuwa ameweka nini?
Alikuwa amepost ati wasome ambao specifically target Kikuyu businesses, which makes zero sense.
You see Tao iko na around 4.5 million people in a day walking. Metropolitan. Wezi niambia ni Wasapere. But you see the point here, politics inakuanga you sell hate. Like mimi nikiangalia tribe yetu Wakikuyu ni lazima tupatiwe reason ya kuhate mtu. Most of the times Wakikuyu we don't vote for, we vote against. So unakuta tunaambia hii time Rawa anasimama ni aje we lazima muumse asiingie. Mnasema dhuraku tunatokea. So we are voting against. So last time tuliambiwa hunye nini aliwanyang'anya mabiz lazima mtokee tumchuje. So we vote against. So if you want the psychology of our people, sometimes you must trigger hate for them to react. And I'm not saying all of them. Kuna wenye wamemachua but that's the sad reality tukistudy pattern ya politics na watu wametoka tribe yetu. So this has nothing to do with Kikuyus. Mimi najua Wajaka. Ukienda places zingine ni Wajaka wanarun. Kuna Waindi wanarun mabiz. But ideally utakuta place prime na wana transact mob of course Masapere.
Cause kulikuwa na hiyo ati intelligence. Waka niko nashindwa hii intelligence yake.
The funniest so declassified. Bado utakuta kuna Wasapere watakuwa kwa hiyo maandamano. Sijuzi tuliona Wasapere wakiandamana wakizusha story ya China. Wakizusha. So ni kumaanisha at the end of the day Nairobi ni metropolitan. Si Murang'a.
Kutakuwa na hiyo. So ni ikikam to story na Monday, of course tuna hope for the best, najua. Me personally niko natry kuambia wife like atry kuambia job hata aenda cuz wife wa questi. So najua naogopa like hiyo nini like hiyo distance ya westi. So najua as in anything especially CBD, anything that makes you have to pass through CBD on Monday. If you can avoid, I'd actually ask people to avoid. Nipoa uavoid alafu nothing happens alafu tuko sawa hakuna kitu ili happen sinajua than wende and then you end up with, because we don't know, nothing might happen. Iza kwa ile siku ya the people's president nothing happened. You remember tuko tume-expect hiyo siku alafu I think according to me nilio-guess like kitu Uhuru alifanya poa ni alimake sure kuna makarao.
Ilikuwa political setup.
So vile kuwa na makarao there was no chaos.
Also wako guarded. Say pia wako na interest globally so hizi guzwa. The second thing pia nafikiria being in a democratic state. Tunafaa kufika point tuache kuogopa. That mzee anasema anaandamana. Tunatokea pia sisi tuna guard biashara zetu. Because hiyo fear sometimes ndio tumika kuanza kuputwa say into compromise. Inafika 2 point wazao wanatokea wanaendelea na job zao. Wenye wanaandamana kwa sababu it's their political right. So that tufike hiyo level ya civilized. Majua tu andamana. Na unastukia maisha inaendelea. So I think hiyo itakuwa imetusaidia sana.
But yetu unafikiria inaweza fikia hiyo level because unaonaga place kama Hong Kong. Remember like people would just be on the streets for like weeks and ndio ikafanya mpaka China wakaamua they are taking over Hong Kong. I feel like Kenya we don't have enough cash to stay in huko nje.
Pia naweza sema tukiangalia politically kuna time ulikuwa una feel kuna hiyo haja ya kuandamana. Kuna time vitu zilikuwa mbaya. But saizi hata ukisikiza wasee walikuwa ni side nyingine. Kuna wase wana feel yenyewe ni aje tulilose tukubali unaget. So unakuta kuna time watu walikuwa wanasema tumeibiwa hii kitu lazima tuipate round hii. Sasa unaanza kufeel hiyo political tone ni kama inaenda down. Ni fiti tujue mobilizations kadhaa happens of politics pia watu ulipwa. Both sides, you know, cause numbers ndio nasema ndio transaction point. So sijajua social cycle. I think Monday is a very good day kupima the mood and the feeling of the Kenyans in general concerning approach ya maandamano na approach ya kupush the government through maandamano. Kuna vitu zinaweza work in a certain time but ziflop in a certain time. So hatuwezi tumia former successes ya maandamano tuone kama itakuwa ndio the current. Yes.
Okay. So tukitoka hapo wacha to go to the what we are supposed to discuss. So sijui kwa najua umesema to watch mara kadhaa but a few people wale wako involved na hii podcast si hatukwagi believers. And the reason behind that is mwambiaga watu the reason behind that is just what I came to learn about religion and apart from religion how I came to learn things that I feel like I was taught wrongly. The way I was taught evolution was wrong. And the way I was taught what else was I taught wrong? Evolution was wrong na pia how earth started. Sindio? So mi naweza sema right now I have a very good knowledge of the Big Bang Theory na niko na very good knowledge of evolution. And through hiyo nimekam kulearn like when I'm told how humans showed up najua life started 3.5 billion years ago. Sisi katuchukua around basically 3.5 billion years kushow up because we showed up 300,000 years ago sisi as humans. So and then through internet pia nikaweza kuona like countries like China religion iko banned especially the two main religions Christianity na Islam ukienda huko zinakuwa banned. So alafu nikiangalia those countries I see like they've advanced so fast compared to sisi. Then if you look at countries like Finland, Norway where atheists are the majority, Iceland they are corruption free 1 2 3. So that's where we are coming from. Then on your side kila mtu anakujuaga like the one guy will like if you want to have a discussion about Christianity the one guy who's knowledgeable enough because nikuwa nasema if I'm engaging someone they need to be knowledgeable enough.
That's true.
Una check it. So tuanzie hapo the first thing neza kuambia like me when I'm discrediting religion the first thing we discredit juu yake ni based on the life of earth. How old earth is. So wewe unajua earth iko how old?
Personally najua napenda hii discussion cause my background yangu ni geology. So geology ni science ya earth. That's the most important thing. Nikifollow the biblical occurrences earth inaweza kuwa billions and millions of years old. Na earth inaweza historia man inaweza kuwa even 6,000 years. And I argue out from scripture. Bible inasema one day is like 1,000 days in the eyes of the Lord. So ni kumaanisha wakati tunasema in the first day God created the heaven and the earth. Your one day inaweza kuwa si 24 hours. Inaweza kuwa ni thousands and thousands of years that your creation ilikuwa ina take place. So we cannot fully verify. Kitu tunajua ni at the introduction of man began 6,000 years ago looking at sasa the lifespan of Adam. That is what it is. The second thing argument yangu inakujanga from a scientific point. The reason why Big Bang na evolution ziko branded as theory ni kwa sababu science will deal na facts. And a fact is something that can be justified and proved. So a theory inakuanga kwa kitu tunaitanga speculation. Speculation ni kumaanisha there are many gaps in academia. Ndio maana saa tuna speculate tunasema hii ndio inaweza kuwa happen. And then saa tunakuanga na kitu inaitangwa popular speculation. Popular speculation we can't prove it but majority wako on the same pattern. In the very field of science hata before tuingie kwa Christianity nimekuwa very cautious also kusikia critics wa evolution for fellow scientist na pia kusikia critics wa Big Bang. Na unakuta there is a lot of knowledge enye ko on the other side of criticism enye bado ijakuwa released kwa sababu the science of academia ni kusela certain narrative. Kama saizi najua kuna kitu inaitwa the debate of evolution versus adaptationalism. You know, did this thing really evolved? Sometimes we cannot fully verify that that man evolved from apes. You know, there's that point did it stop at a certain phase. So hizo debates unakuta zina open a very big academic argument, and sometimes people say let's take away creation because it's what they call intellectual laziness. Let's continue thinking as scientists.
So kitu moja leneza counter hiyo neza kuambia as much as these things are called theories, yusemekanaga a scientific theory is a fact. So for example, Pythagoras theorem, sindio? A is equals to b squared plus c squared. Tukichukua triangle. If you actually do it, it's actually that. It's called a theorem. So hata niko naangalia hapa nikosema kuna place kwa website flani livescience.com inasema the way scientists use the word theory is a little bit different than how it is commonly used in the lay public. That means a scientific theory according to science, it's still a fact. So fact yao ni we didn't evolve from apes. Apes are our relatives. Hiyo ndio kitu watu make a mistake. Sisi watu tuko close now ni akina Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo what. But now they could not survive. So wakadedi tukawa replace. Because science inasemaga survival of the fittest. Sindio? So unapata kuna wale like sisi tulikam after ni Homo one of those Homo erectus ama Homo habilis wale tulikam hawaku last. Alafu ile kitu happen ni by science inasemaga it's small errors that happen. So kuna mtoi fulani alizaliwa, so maybe according to science who had a little bit bigger brain than madhake na budake. Sindio? Mtoi akahave sex na mwingine brain wakazaliwa wakiwa na bigger brains. Alafu before you know it you had humans because according to science the only thing in to separate from these other animals mostly ni intelligence. Because we do everything that they do. We bleed like them. We breed like them. We can have them for food. They can have us for food. We are just part of the food chain. Nacheki. So, but kitu ngwa try kuput across hapo ni a scientific theory is a fact. It's not a theory like a normal theory.
Mina is a mwakwagu because you see, when we say this is red, and you have all the facts to prove this is red, then that stops being a theory, becomes a scientific reality. So when it's put under theory, it means there are still some scientific gaps and arguments that are not very viable. That's what utakuta in the field of philosophy. Unakuta kuna different branches of philosophy on the same matter, because philosophy ni thought pattern. Kama Pythagoras theory, ukiingia kwa the philosophies of mathematics, utakuta kuna now advanced levels of philosophy. Even where philosophy is now split, unakuta sisi wa Kratos, sisi wa Stoic, because our thinking patterns don't agree on some reality. Like whatever you've said, the concept of wase na apes yo likami kadai kakami kaingia into existence. Now ukiingia kwa Genesis, scripture iko very clear. Man was created above animals. And that's why in the creation factor man was given dominion, authority over all. So ukianza sasa kuangalia the essence of intelligence, animals ziko kwa instincts. Some on feelings, but the essence of intelligence inaanza kukuambia there must be a designer that designed this being superior from these other things. Ukiangalia to the concept of creation, na uangalia the concept of science. What do we say? Theology is a science. It's the science of God. And now when we come to science, there must be evidence. So tukiangalia what creation does, creation unveils. The science reveals creation. Science does not create creation. So science will come and tell you this mountain formed through magma eruption, and so the mountain came. Science explains and reveals creation. Science will come and say, you know, this fish is called this type, they've been breeding this the years of existence. But where science and many times faith, I don't want to use the word religion, faith does not disagree with scientific facts. Faith disagrees with when we come to the level of now theories that cannot be justified. And so when now we come to take away the concept of the designer, then we look at a concept of so many coincidences that have happened, which again cannot even be justified scientifically.
Okay, then hapa nitakukutia, there's an astrophysicist anaitwa Neil deGrasse Tyson. Sijui namjua. So Neil deGrasse I'd say you are the equivalent one Neil deGrasse. The way you make religion, ama you make Christianity fun. Neil deGrasse Tyson makes science fun. And one of the most interesting things ashaifanya ni nature owes you no explanation. The universe owes you no explanation. So alikuwa anasema by that anasema like alafu alikuwa anasema one of the things as a scientist someone has to agree is it's okay to say I don't know. So kama scientifically imekuwa proven scientifically that the first living organism to exist on earth was 3.5 billion years ago.
Sasa hapo ndo naanza kuleta swali za kwanza. How do we even agree that time scale is accurate?
That time scale because
as a geologist
radiocarbon dating.
Carbon dating. As a geologist tulikuwa tuna study hizo vitu and we used to put them on approximation. Do na study what we call the stratosphere. Unaanza kusema this mountain could be this possible age. So some of them of what we call science, it takes, I'll say this, it takes faith even to believe in science.
No,
it takes faith. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Mtu atakwambia hii ni carbon dating, nikiweka hii chemical na hii inakuletea the years, inapitia through machine nini, and you have to believe. Natumianga a very simple example. It takes faith to believe in water there is H2O, there is hydrogen and there is oxygen. Though you don't see hydrogen, you don't see oxygen, but you believe the two molecules coming together form something liquid. It takes faith to believe in something you don't see. But so in all areas, faith is key. Wacha nirudi nyume nikupe time. Naona umepiga research na nipoa. It's a healthy debate. Now, first of all, kuna one mistake imekuwa ikihappen. Kuna religion, kuna spiritualism. Alafu kuna faith. Now, religion, most of the times inakuanga is a system that is built around a certain spirituality. Now, for the Muslims, wame build around spirituality ya Muhammad. Now, ukidig deep about, Muhammad was just a teacher. Ukidig deep, there is a whole ecosystem of spirituality. Ukiingia kwa Christians, it is the same. Na hata ukiingia in China, they don't have a religion per se, but they have a way of spiritualism. There is no continent. Wherever you go, you'll find there is a pattern of spiritualism. So we have to agree that there is religion and there is spiritualism. So tukiingia kwa Africanism na nini traditions, we come to the reality of spiritualism. So the reason why many people have bashed religion is because there are places where the formation of that cahoot around a certain spiritualism had interest politically, socially. So unakuta a certain spiritualism called Islam or Christian or Hinduism or Buddhism was used to pass some certain interest, which are captured historically. But when we come now to general analysis, identification, is that there is a realm called the spiritual realm. Now the debate in Akuanga, who is right in definition and descriptive of that realm. Now science does not believe in that realm. Now, but science is now introducing the conversation of UFOs, meaning that there is an outer space kind of life. Now, spiritualism will tell you anything that is not in the realm of earth is in a realm called spirituality. Science will call them wataita manini, wataita aliens. That name alien means these are strangers. Spirituality will call them fallen angels and demons. Science will tell you there is an alien invention coming. Christianity will tell you the world is almost coming to an end and another demonic kingdom will take over. So you begin to see there's a lot of correlation between what is happening. So Nikona feel it's clear to define that because when we come now to Christianity, what defines Christianity is beyond the cross. There is a spirituality behind Christianity, and that's why the end goal of Christianity is also founded on something we call the Holy Spirit. So we have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And anyone who tells you is a believer today, Jesus ascended and said, I'm not gonna leave you alone, but I'm gonna leave you with the Holy Spirit. So that's the ecosystem and the civilization of Christian spirituality.
So kuna a few things let's counter. Vile ulisema juu ya earth kukua created for humans, because now with that we'd have to go back to the age of the earth. What's the age of the earth according to Wewe? How old is earth? Because umesema humans are 6,000 years old. Ama humanity. How old is earth?
Nimesema according to God, one day could be 1,000 days. So we can't really verify because my manual of argument is the Bible. And the Bible does not give us the age of the earth. It doesn't.
Because science inasema 4.5 billion years old.
Which could be true when we take that mathematics because God could have created the earth and then created man later. Inaweza kuwa ni very possible. So siezi argue juu sina fact ya kusema it is this old.
Yes. Alafu another thing ile religion who go around, even Christianity, all religions, is when earth will end. Science inatuambiaga like scientifically earth haita exist by 4 billion years from now, and the reason that's going to happen is the sun, the way through science tunaweza study to notice the sun gets brighter 10% every billion years. So 10% nani exponential, not ni compounding, sindio?
Yes.
So that means that the earth will be over 40% brighter. Na hiyo jua like basically pia itakuwa ikirun out of hydrogen and everything will collapse. Alafu pia kitufanyaga science inakuwa interesting ni when you know that everything we are made out of is the same thing that makes everything else. That means ndani yako uko na hydrogen, uko na carbon, sindio? The elements, yes. So if you have hydrogen, carbon, uko na nitrogen, all these things ziko ndani yako, and the same things tukiangalia jua, tunapata jua ina running on hydrogen. Like even what's the basis of us trying to have hydrogen cars? Ni jua. Kwa nini unakaka ile time ukisema we don't have faith that water has hydrogen because we can actually test it out. But you can go to a lab and you'll see oxygen. Oxygen is saizi room ikijazwa oxygen. Mtu akikama ajaze 100% pure oxygen. What would happen to the two of us? We'd die. Because our lungs would basically burn. Because switch kwaga ni 21%. Hii oxygen yetu ya kawaida ile. If you had 100%, you're going to combust. So it's a scientific like reality that oxygen exists, hydrogen exists. We can go to a lab and actually separate the two. So hatuwezi sema hiyo ni faith.
Anasema ni faith kwa sababu there is also a spiritual reality that God exists. Because we encounter him. The same way lungs yako inaweza burst is the same way pia when you begin to walk with God you encounter him. One of the revelations, in fact in the book of Romans chapter number 1, Bible inasema creation is the first Bible. Hata before usome Bible kistudy to creation utadiscover it's the first Bible. Napenda concept yenye unasema all of us have the elements of the earth. Bible inasema when
the
you
universe.
die, when you die we take you back to the earth. Genesis inasema and God formed the man of the earth. So it is there in Genesis 2:7. So it is reality, man came from earth and your bones are calcium and your flesh have all these components. And when you decompose you become soil because you came from that very element. So we see science, we don't differ on that area that man is a component of the elements. Now by the way ukiingia kwa kitu inaitangwa witchcraft, deep witchcraft, now that is manipulation of spiritualism. Wanatumianga the elements of the earth. That's when unasikia kuna herbalist. Now witchcraft hizi survive bila the sun, the moon. And so they begin to control the elements which is water, wind and fire. And that's why sauna kutapia kuna element ya herb na element ya animals. Now this is manipulation of spiritualism. Kama umestudy fiti, civilization ya Egypt iko founded on very dark deep spiritualism. If you do that, the science hata the concept ya pyramids na hizo, the whole science iko na spiritualism behind it. The mysteries of the pyramids, there's a lot of spiritualism behind it. Now what we can get, what I can say when it comes to the concept ya existence ya earth na the concept ya everything that we are seeing around, science bado ijapeana sufficiency na reason enough ya kujustify that hakuna designer. Because the concept is when we talk about Big Bang, when we talk about the existence of the river, the hydrological cycle, when we talk about how humanity are, you know, the even whatever tulikuwa tunapelekwa ile the animal cycle and all that. When you look at the evidences, hata tukiangalia from metaphysics, tukiangalia from social, tukiangalia from the reality, when the DNA was discovered, we all know ilikuja ikaleta science into what we call a scientific jeopardy. It took evolution back to class. So tunaanza kudiscover is like science advances, then one research takes them back to appreciation that indeed there is a designer behind all this infrastructure.
Because okay, according to science the universe now that we exist in, the observable universe,
waja niku cut short
13.5 billion.
Waja niku cut short.
Yes.
Najua umemention kuhusu 4.5 billion.
Yes.
Ile kitu imekam kwa mind yangu ni actually we can sit and believe that the earth will not live for 4 billion years, and believe that the earth is reducing in 10% in every billion years. personally nanikalia fiction stories because when you look at the essence of a billion, a billion, you know, we are just here for 60 to 90 years.
Yes.
So how do we come to that conclusion?
It's because
how do we come to that conclusion that the sun is reducing in size in a billion years, whereas we are not even there a billion years ago to know the element and how the infrastructure of the earth was.
Okay. This is what I'll tell you. If a car is moving, a car is moving at 1 kilometer per hour.
Yes.
Sindio? And I start observing it for 2 years. Alafu nione sasa naweza jiuliza hii kitu kama ina move at this rate inamaanisha ikainaenda Kisumu itachukua this amount of minutes. Sindio? So what science is doing is tunaangalia like the brightness, how the brightness is increasing. Na tunaona kama ina increase by this 0.0000 inamaanisha in this amount of years itakuwa ime do by this and then in a billion itakuwa ime doing by 10%.
So we believe, then that's speculation.
No, it's not believing.
We can't,
it's mathematics.
You see, wakati tulikuwa tunasoma science tunafanya tunaitwa extrapolation. Whatever we extrapolated was not a fact. It was an assumption because the graph is going like this, then it's going to go like that. And there are many things that have changed. Even right now tukianza kuingia stories are global warming, shift of weather. Kuna areas zilikuwa defined climatically that these are semi-arid area. Geologically, kama saizi kumekuwa na debate because kuna rocks zinapatikana Kakamega and those rocks are founded in deep sea. Kuna rocks upata Naivasha's town zenye ni rocks za lake. So geologically tuna believe possibly Naivasha, the whole of Naivasha was a lake. The lake is diminishing. So nikianza kuiangalia hivyo naanza kujiuliza the climate of Naivasha cannot be rubber stamped na tuseme this is the climate now. So tunaweza extrapolate tuseme in 20 years this will be the climate because we are living in a very dynamic changing kind of globe. So we can't use an element that is now where we enter to speculations. When we come to speculations, they are now treated as facts. They are put in our curriculum. Someone will go on YouTube and he will present it. Remember, YouTube is not a encyclopedia.
I know.
Meaning that the knowledge in YouTube is not vetted. Ata knowledge itaenda YouTube. Na some of us vitu tunabonga, some are not 100% factual, but they are on our analysis. But kuna mtu anaweza ipika kama argument aseme lakini nani alisema hivi. Sometimes sani kianza kuangalia in the age of information, lazima pia tukue logical enough kuvet. I'm a believer in Christianity. But I won't lie to you. Kuna vitu nasikianga watu wakiteach and I don't believe in them. I'm a believer in science. But kuna vitu nasikianga zikispekulatiwa kwa science najiambia pia mzee ametubeba ufala. I think this is his own speculation, creativity ya man tu amekama ameona kitu. And sometimes lovers of knowledge, some things massage our ears because there is the desire to know how did it happen. And everyone is trying to explain it. Sorry.
It's very good because I think that's where maybe even Christianity or religion in general becomes different from science. Because science inakuwaga na one agreement. It's okay to say I don't know. That's why usemaga like scientists wakiulizwa sawa life started 3.5 billion years ago. This was a single-celled organism. Where did this single-celled organism come from? Science inasemaga we don't know. Inasema ni kazi yako kuenda kufind out. But sasa with religion is this happened. Kama hiyo story ya 6,000 years old, the oldest human bones zishaipatikana according to science ni 233,000 years old. Na so hapa ni ile place maybe mtu ataargue seme but no everything we do like when a scientist sat down and decided let's create a plane. Sindio? Ilikuwa lazima tu account for air pressure, air what alafu tujue uko juu hakuna oxygen. You see all these things, how did scientists know that hakuna oxygen huko? It's through studying patterns. Because what separates humans from other animals is pattern recognition. It's that very simple thing. Humans can recognize a pattern. Tunazoona 1 + 1 ni 2. An animal can't do that. Inasemekanaga like the difference in DNA between sisi na chimpanzees is 1%. But the difference in intelligence is very huge. That's why I remember there's a scientist who was asking, what if kuna another species ile difference yao na sisi in another planet ni 1%. They'll come to us and look at hatu ni yani hao ingia kwa gari ndio move from hapa to hapa. Why can't they do this and this? Because science kuna kwa the element of we were lucky that when other animals were getting long tails, long what, we ended up with a big brain. So now through this big brain we are able to recognize patterns, and then we can do 1 2 3. And hapo I hope to share agree on at least scientific theories are facts according to
mi nasema some of the scientific theories
so una dispute gani
stories ni story unasikiza unajiambia man kona creativity, and that is accepted. Anytime man does not know anything, creativity shows up.
Cause kama evolution even though mu discredit when people say earth was created for humans, do you know 67% of earth is hostile to humans? You know that, like hawezi ishi kwa ocean, hawezi, kuna mountains ukienda you'll die immediately. Things like the Andes mountains in Argentina, where those people even have now according to science wame adapt where they have different sorts of lungs na sisi they can breathe in very whatever. So earth is hostile, but apart from that, if right now I put you in a cage with a lion, the lion won't think you're special. It's going to treat you like it would treat any other animal. It's just going to see food. So you can try and imagine the number of humans that died for us to exist. Like our ancestors, kuna ule kwa natembea tu nyoka, lion inakam inamgrab and it has him for dinner. But now since you're very intelligent, we can't fathom that. Like, how can this very dumb animal be the same as me? I must be more special than it. But we get sick like animals get sick. We get eaten, we rot, we have sex just like them. We don't breed in a special way. We breed like them. Our blood is the same color as them. We can eat them, they can eat us, they can nourish us, we can nourish them. You see, like we are just part of the animal kingdom, but our difference is we are intelligent. And
that's why our difference is that we are created in the image of God.
Yeah.
And creation explains and says when sin entered, creation fell. When creation fell, corruption entered.
Yeah.
And that's where the language of violence began.
Yeah.
And when the language of violence began, these animals lost their original status of being.
Yeah.
And we believe scripturally that creation will be restored back to its original order.
Yeah.
After man is restored back. And that's when the violence of lions will now be restored. Because of vile zinafaa coexist. But tukiangalia from that dynamic, personally I will say there is a part of man that could be animalistic. But also I cannot fully conclude that man is in the animal kingdom. I believe he's a species above what we call the animal kingdom. He's a ruler of this realm. The second thing I will believe, there are many what are they called? Planets on Earth. Yeah. We need to ask ourselves, was it a coincidence that only planet had the ability to give survival to human life?
Yeah.
Now sometimes as science is trying to unravel the paradox of humanity, science also adds spiritual points to us who believe in faith. Because unajiuliza, of all these million planets that are being discovered, how
billions
how comes that Earth was the only planet that was habitable? And God says in Genesis, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, meaning that even the writers of scripture acknowledge there is a planet called Earth.
Yeah.
And in that Earth it was in chaos. So there was an essence of restoration and making it habitable. Look at Genesis 1. It is making the earth habitable. And when the earth was habitable, man was introduced on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
So when I look at that, it begins now to I begin to ask myself, how comes that this is the only planet that permits habitation of man? How comes that this, with every element, food supply, the right oxygen, the right temperature, that if the sun tilts 1 degree, everything is going to melt. The way the sun goes round, the system of it is day, it is night. There are so many coincidences to look upon the earth and just ignore science will explain all these realities.
Like me, one of the most powerful things I ever had is the same way someone would say he was being religious, but the universe owes you no explanation. Like one of the things science has been able to observe ni black holes. You know about black holes?
Personally, as I said, the universe owes you no explanation.
Yes.
But you study the universe, it gives you more explanation about the existence of God.
No.
Na sikui religious. Mimi ndakwambia, many of the geological books I read, great scientists, even locally in Nairobi University, most wrote and accepted there must be a superior designer. They never said the name of that designer. Because they came to one conclusion, that this cannot be a series of coincidences. These are now people who are researching geological caves, existence of geysers, existence of rivers, lakes, and all that in the ecosystem. And even even Aristotle, I think, he came to one conclusion. He said there must be an existence of a superior being, and I think I may not have the right quoting. He said I will not name him, and I have no authority to do that. And these are the philosophers that have shaped 21st century thinking.
Alafu tukistick na hiyo, the other question would be, if everything has to come from something and God created earth, then the question would be, who created God? You see, that's where now the problem becomes. But the scientific explanation of the universe is the universe is all that has ever been and all that will ever be.
And answering that question is, if you see, the creator of this phone is not in this phone. For him to be the creator, he must be out of this. You must be out of what you're creating, and you cannot be controlled by what you're creating. So if God is the creator of the universe, he cannot be in the universe. He cannot be limited and controlled by the factors and parameters that control the universe.
But he's created in our image.
He's outside space. He's outside space, he's outside time, and he's also outside the factors that control the universe. Now, when we look at the image in the original, because the rendering of scripture comes with evolution of grammar, when you look at that name, image is not reflection, it is projection. That means, I've seen you have an amazing daughter, that you are not similar, but there are characters in her that you bear. So when we say God created man, God is a spirit, meaning that when we look at you, you have the image of God because you have the character. Part of the character of God is dominion over nature. And that's why now science will say man is a super mammal, but God says because you have my image, one of the natures of God is that he has dominion over nature, dominion over land. He is superior over all these things. And so man bears the projection of God. So that's the dynamic. So the moment we put God in the confinement of what he created, he ceases from being God. Yes.
Because history of dominion, one way that I normally disagree with it is this. The only people who think they have dominion over animals are humans. So this is the example I'll give you. Humans, we know people who have dominion over us. So like right now, we know that President Ruto has dominion over us. Sindio? That means right now, kama Nick Ruto, if I gave Nick Ruto $1 million shillings.
No, Ruto has authority, not dominion.
But yes.
And we are the one who gave him the authority.
Yes. But if I gave Nick Ruto $1 million shillings to just hold and walk around in a slum, and people knew that's Nick Ruto, no one would attack him. Mimi na wewe tukitembea na $1 million shillings saizi Mathare, immediately will be attacked. You know why? Because humans have discovered that guy is special. We are not supposed to attack him. But the same way, if we had dominion, tungekuwa tunaingia pahali, animal inaogopa. But an animal, the only reason me and you would survive a lion attack is through a scientific device. Unajua, we'd need a gun, we need something to fight this lion. Otherwise, this lion is just going to have you for dinner, and people won't believe. What are like, Mwaf jo alikuwa na podcast, yani mzali dishiwa na Simba jo. Yani ya Simba iko na jo mzali alikuwa na 50,000 subscribers.
Unafaa uende Mara, Wamasai upita katikati ya forest.
Yes.
Na hata Simba waguzange. In fact, wanasemanga kuna Simba inaweza waona na ihepe. And they survive with there is a scent they apply, and that scent releases fear to the animals. Nitasema,
me and you,
I don't think I don't think we treat people special. I believe that must fall under social cycle, environments where we live. Because when I look at Kenya, being a third world country, when we treat power differently compared when you look at places like Europe. I was talking to someone and he told me we are post-materialism age. So for them, whether you are the president or not, you are riding a bicycle because materialism doesn't define you. So because we're in the third world country, we are defined by materialism, and that's where now speciality, fear, because we tend to protect those who have amassed more than us. We rank men not according to values, we rank men according to material possession. And that just is a tuning psychologically. when the violence of animals, one of the things, the language dominion, in deeper context of Genesis 1, man was given dominion in 3 spheres. He was told, I've given you dominion over the birds of the air, over the fish of the sea, and over the crawling animals of the land. Now we know cows don't crawl, lions don't crawl. The book of Genesis is a very deep metaphorical book. So what God was speaking was the 3 spiritual realms of operation. Now, when you go to deep spirituality, you'll understand there's what we call the princes of the air, there's what we call the marine spirit, and there's what we call the land spirit. That is why a herbalist who understands the system of the land will look for some herbs, mix them, and is able to interfere with the realm of the spirit. People will sacrifice under a tree. People will face a certain mountain because they have spiritual coding. When you go to the marine kingdom, this has even been proved, the concept of the mermaids. In Nigeria, they call them mami water. In Zambia, they call them mambamutu. They have been proved, they have been captured. These are real entity creatures that control the sea kingdom. And then now we come to the air, the air spirits. And one of the air spirits, he operates majorly through the airwaves. That's why there is a sound that can dominate a territory, and it begins to affect the culture of that territory because spirits are hovering over that territory. So spiritually, God was speaking about the 3 realms that man ought to rule. He was not talking about rats and snakes. It was a serious dominion. And I've said because of the fallen nature of the world, in Romans the Bible says creation awaits for the manifestation of the sons of God, meaning that even the world is fallen and the world is waiting for redemption. And the sons of God will be manifested in a new earth and a new heaven. And science agrees the earth will come to an end. And you see, the next debate is always on the afterlife. Because one of the mysteries about life is that a protein cell fuses with another protein cell, and they move from becoming cells and they become an entity which stays in a certain environment called the womb for 9 months. And that protein cell moves from an entity and becomes a being. And later that being grows, shapes out. When that protein cell that became a being is buried, it ends up becoming soil. Now that's a mystery. It was not a fusion of soil. It was a fusion of protein that ends up becoming, humus and calcium and all these minerals. So when I look at that reality, it begins to tell me the essence of life. It cannot be fully decoded through science, that today we are seated, we are flesh, tomorrow all of us will be heaps of soil. And then we have to ask ourselves, what is that consciousness that controls humanity? Because it's not in the mind. Now, when we go to what we call the law of morality, and the law of morality dictates that you take 10 strangers who don't even know the Bible, put them in a certain environment through the consciousness of their being. You've spoken about nations that don't believe in God, but through their consciousness, they have set laws that when you study those laws, agree with the commandments of God. That they say we don't kill, we don't rape, we don't do this. Though there is no book introduced to build a religion, but because they have morality and they are controlled by the law of morality, they create a system that is 100% backed up by God. So man is beyond flesh and blood. Man is beyond what we see in the physical. I'll give you even a mystery spiritually. You see, when we say a man has died, science will say the heart has stopped beating. But spiritually will say the soul has departed from the flesh. And that departure of the soul is a whole mystery explained by Solomon in Ecclesiastes. He talks about the breaking of the silver cord, something connected to your flesh. When it breaks, everything suspends. Now, when I have such a phone, it has Facebook, it has WhatsApp, it has everything. When I take away the battery, I don't take away the Facebook. Meaning that something must be injected for them to come up alive. Meaning that when a man dies, he still has eyeballs, ears, but the sensory dimension is wrapped up in the soul. Where does the soul go when it leaves the body? That's the conversation of the afterlife. Yes, but you see, they say, man wants to convince himself there is no God because man is afraid of accountability. Because now that is what brings liberalism. When you study the philosophy of science, the one who pioneered the philosophy of science, I think it was Plato, I'm not very sure, but one of the Stoic philosophers, Plato, one of them was propagated atheism. And he said the foolishest thing to do is to believe there is a God. It brings intellectual laziness. So guys, let us think.
And look at it. Like, look at the continents that believe in God. kabisa, Africa is one of them.
Yes.
We have the most intellectually lazy people right now because we have the most useless leaders, etc. Let's compare two countries. Let's compare Japan that practices Shintoism. Shintoism has no god. It's just a way of whatever. And then we have Kenya.
But it's a spiritual way.
Yes. Kenya, like right now we have the most religious president. And when we are counting votes, someone has to confirm, umepata votes ngapi? Mi nimepata ngapi? Japan, if it's me, the Pastor T versus Mwafrika, I'll count your votes, you'll count my votes, and we'll both be 100% honest. These countries have no gods. So you have Japan with no god, you have China with no god. You have, if we go to Europe, the countries that introduced Christianity to us, you have countries like Norway with like very little percent. I think Iceland is 1% Christian. Iceland, paka people joke that place is so cold that walikuwa like hapa hakuna Mungu hapa, hakuna place za kwa this cold na kuena. So we've noticed that being moral and believing in a god don't go hand in hand. You can be without. So you are saying that it's the moral code in us, sindio, in our DNA, but mimi nasema ni the intelligence. Because if wolves, ushaonaga vile when wolves are moving around, they always protect the weak ones. So inakuwa a few strong ones mbele, a few strong ones nyuma, alafu after mbele kutakuwa na the weak ones, hapa katikati the old ndio watakuwa wamefuata the strongest ones, alafu hapa itakuwa the normal, alafu mwisho kabisa itakuwa the strongest still. These are wolves. Wolves are not intelligent, as intelligent as us.
Yes.
But, and alafu wolves also show us evolution, because according to science, the youngest, one of the youngest animals ni dogs. Dogs came from wolves. That's according to science. The dogs and wolves are basically relatives kabisa. So unacheki hii nini, so now we know if animals like we know elephants mourn. Ulisikia jole muindi aliuaga mtoto wa elephant, then the elephant came back and trampled her to death, because elephants don't forget. And on top of that, during her funeral, the elephant came and ikahepesha kila mtu. So we've come to know that animals have a certain level of intelligence that sisi, the only difference is ours is higher.
It's higher.
So since they have that and they protect their own, that means sisi, we are the most, I'd say we are the one species that kills each other more than all the animal species.
Yes, and we have to ask ourselves why.
Because we are intelligent.
Yes.
Number one is we have very nini. So now we can't say it's religion that makes us good, or because now animals without religion, it's very hard for you to get lions killing each other. But humans, hata mande tunaogopa kwa nini? Because it's humans.
Now I'll try to explain it. There is a place of intelligence and there's a place of morality.
Yeah.
I'll use the example of Tesla.
Yeah.
One of the greatest scientific discoveries, a man who discovered many things. But you know, before the death of Tesla, majority of his documents, he didn't want to release them.
Yeah.
Because there was a consciousness in him, if these formulas land in the wrong hands, I'll have put the globe in chaos. Yeah. So we are seeing a man guarding intelligence through consciousness. Meaning that
we are talking about Nikola Tesla.
Yes.
Oh, not the car company. Okay,
yeah. Of course, it was named after him.
Yeah.
So we look at this guy, and when his formulas were adopted and all that, they became the patterns of what we call the global powers.
Yeah.
Now let's look at nations that believe in God and nations that don't believe in God.
Yes.
Number one, we need to get this very clearly. Success is partially a product of faith, but partially a product of principles.
Yes.
I don't know why when we mention China, we fail to mention the Gulf. Yeah. Right now, some of the biggest economies is the Gulf. I was in Bahrain and I wanted to understand why is Dubai thriving the way it's thriving. Yeah. And in a few years, Dubai would be the biggest. Yeah. When you look at Pythagoras, that was in the age of Islam.
Yeah.
When you look at the first university, some of the
alchemy,
yes.
So
algebra, those were Islams.
Yes.
Those are even Arabic names. What is the source? What is the source of Islam? Of course, is religion.
Yeah.
And when you look at Islam is 500 years younger than Christianity. And we know the reality from academia is that majority of the principles in Islam and Christianity are very much the same.
Yeah.
When you look at the economies like America, these were structures and systems that were designed by the Jews. And the Jews operate from the Torah. the world of America is systems operated from the principles of the Torah, the language of giving and all that. Today, Israel has more millionaires than any other nation in the world. We're talking about wealth. And it is one of the smallest nations, but one of the wealthiest. Yes. They control every mountain of influence in the West. Now, Jews operate with one manual called the Torah. When I was in the Arabic nations, I discovered like Saudi Arabia is 100% an Islam state. When you go to Dubai, when you go to Bahrain, their economic system is founded on the principles of their faith. One word is very key in Islam. It's called halal. That word kills corruption. That word kills anything that is inhuman. Now let's go to men that have intelligence without morality. This is now China, whose warehouses are filled with missiles. This is Russia, who can attack Ukraine because of political reasons. This is America joining Russia to attack Ukraine for political reasons. So this is the intelligence of man without morality, leading to the destruction of man versus man. What happens when religion dominates a state? Fear enters. We know, and this now where it comes to the place of value. I believe Europe lived. I was in Netherlands, and I saw the loneliness of the people. And I discovered people don't value living in mansions. People value cycling. People value living in a one-bedroom house. And what they value is that I can work for a whole year just to go and climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So some of these nations we call wealthy, they are deprived of what actually defines wealth. They have everything that money can buy, and they miss that which money cannot buy. And that is very simple, the peace of mind. People are paying millions to go to India for yoga so that they can enter meditation and have the peace of mind. If you ask me, Africa is spiritual and religious. We are poor economically, but we have the wealth that the globe is trying to look for. That is peace, that is consciousness, that mtu anaweza toka hapa India apige ball na ugopi kuna suicide bomber. That is priceless. You don't find that in Afghanistan. So we have to narrow down. In a third world country, we define wealth with the standard of the first world country. In the first world country, they define wealth with different standards, because for them they believe someone who is healthy, fitness, someone who can, has some dollars to tour the world, that man has wealth. Because we are still in the pre-materialistic age than the post-materialistic age. So our definition of wealth is different. Now, the problem is when spirituality is emphasized at the expense of principle. Now, the Bible says we are kings and priests. Now, kings are territorial. Priests are altar-centered. Now, what will deliver Africa, number one, is when now we begin to introduce the kingly dimension of teaching, and that is the principle dimension. Simple things, hard work, integrity, being a man of your words. We've seen the Gulf succeed because of these principles. They are spiritual, call it spiritual defined under Islam, and they are also ruling. And guess who they employ? Majority of the people employing them from the West because they are intellectuals. But they operate under the parameters of their faith.
So, unajua vile umepatia na Afghanistan is a religious state. Because personally, I always equate religion and violence to be very close relatives. And right now we can look at Islamic fundamentalism, Islamic terrorism, etc. But if we go back in history, we'll have the Crusades, when Christianity was being spread. So you have that. So we've known that Christianity, like the way even religion was spread in Africa, we were not given a choice. Like when the missionaries came to Africa, haikuwa ati, tafadhali acha kuomba mugumo kuja hapa, ilikuwa uspo na kuchapa risasi. Choose. It's either my God or you're gone.
I think it's not 100% accurate.
It was not like, how do you abandon your God if it's not with violence?
Because in the realm of the spirit, I'll give an example with where I come from. In the realm of the spirit, people submit to the one that demonstrates power. Even when you go to witchcraft, when a witch realizes you have more power, they will submit. Some of our people saw the power of God. Blind eyes were opened. Deaf ears were opened, which their herbs could not do. In fact, you study what we call the revivals. Study just it's basic, the 70, 80 revivals. Some people submitted their witchcraft element under the altar of the church. They saw another power that was greater than their power. and in the ranks of power, they submitted to that power that was greater. This is what I will say. Some missionaries came with very good intentions, but they were overridden by colonialists who had very bad intentions. When you study the entry of the Gospels in territories, in fact, it has more benefits. When you read history with two pairs of spectacles, someone said, sometimes we read history with a broken pair of spectacles so that we just see one side. During the Crusades, when you go back to church history, you discover there was a whole political entity because the papacy was always backed up by the government. And most of the Crusades, it was a spiritual revolution where people discovered there was doctrine and dogma that had been introduced which was not biblical. So people began to fight. And so it became a contention because the state had already bought the church through Constantine. And so now true believers, Bible believers began to contend. One of them we look at Luther, who penned the 95-letter thesis, trying to create an argument of what they were calling the theological discourse. So when I begin to look at these matters in both ways, there are nations where the entry of the gospel literally brought healing. I'll give you, I know you're a researcher. Go and research about the Fiji revival, which happened in 1995. Literally, Second Chronicles was fulfilled. If my people were known by my name, if they humble themselves and turn from their evil ways, I will heal their land. Fiji without scientific reason, turning through prayer. This is 1995. I'm not quoting 4.5 billion years. It's YouTube. Their land was healed. They began to have huge harvest. We know Fiji out of rugby. And they came in the globe market, coming from a war area to becoming a land that was healed. And they operated in the unity of what we call the faith. So, of course...
Rene, if I could interrupt you.
Yes.
I have not researched about it, but I'm sure there's a scientific explanation of why land... Because prayer, this is what...
How do people...
Wacha nikupatie example, alafu nitakuacha continue. When we had the national prayers, I did this podcast. This is one of the reasons why people requested for you. Because I told him, like, we wasted a whole day. Because I'm not a religious person. I don't believe prayer works. Which now, you're considering you sell prayer. This is very interesting.
Because it has worked. So, I'm a living evidence of prayer. If you're using scientific facts, I'm a sample.
Yes. Shida yangu na prayer waga hivi. Number one, it's regional. It's geographical. Right now, if I was to close like your mouth and nose, nianze kukufinyelia hivi, you'd gasp for oxygen. Whether you're Chinese, I'm doing that in Kenya, I'm doing it in China, I'm doing it. So it does not matter you're God. You need oxygen to survive. If you don't have enough oxygen for a certain period of time, you go brain dead, then you'll become a potato and then you die. Yes? Religion is regional. That means the fact that Pastor T was born in Kenya and he was born to a Christian family, he's a Christian. If Pastor T had been born in India, most probably he'd believe in a cow. If Pastor T was born in Japan, he'd pray once a year. The Shinto, you do the Shinto thing once a year. If kama unge kwa China, most probably unge practice Buddhism. But if you're born in South Korea and there was the Korean War, you'd be a Christian. Because you see the Americans took Christianity to Korea. But North Korea was not part of that. So now in North Korea, you'd be an atheist. You see, hiyo ndio shida iko. But fundamentals of science, like gravity, works the same way in all countries. If you go to a 10-story building in Afghanistan and you jump, you're going to die. If you go to a 10-story building in Kenya, you're going to die. But if you go to a 10-story building in kwa the moon, most probably your gravity hautakufa. Unaona? So this is what nasema. Shida ya religion ni, it depends with where you're from. Science does not depend with where you're from. Like if I point a gun at you, it does not matter who you are. You could be the president or you could be the poorest person. If there's a bullet in that gun, it's going to treat you exactly the same. Religion inakuaga hapa sawa pale ha. So now we look at for example countries like Saudi Arabia, where if you steal, kichwa inakatwa, sindio? And you're executed in the streets. This is very violent. If you steal in a country that has no God like Norway, you'll be taken to prison and they'll try and rehabilitate you. The first thing won't be let's kill you. Because hiyo ndio kitu musemaga, religion is very violent. People don't always associate violence with religion. But remember when we couldn't even leave the house, we'd go to a place like Westgate and we'd be scared. there was a religious backing to it. But that was what we experienced.
And of course,
we didn't experience when the missionaries came and they had to force Africans to drop all their gods. It was not a negotiation.
I would say missionaries never forced Africans. It was encounters. I was born Catholic. After Form 4, I was atheist. I didn't believe in any God. It was the same research you're doing. Science never answered my questions. Some faith never answered my question. And I was on a journey of light, because truth is light. I was on a journey of light, and I think what confirmed to me on a personal level, in the name of Jesus, I saw a blind eye open. In the name of Jesus, in my own family, I've seen my young brother, my cousin, heart that had a hole, being closed in a prayer meeting. You say amen, and the father is a doctor. And you see, he had all the reports, and the following day, the thing was not there.
I dispute that, because
let me finish. My own uncle in that same meeting got healed of epileptic. It ended and it has never come back. So when I began to sow the results of what I believe in, I realized this thing is real. I've prayed, I've seen answers. I've prayed, and I've also not seen answers. Because prayer is a mystery. I won't say that everything I've ever prayed for came to pass, because there is again the aligning of the will of God. Now, the moment you subscribe into faith, you all know that God is in charge and God is in control. Now, we could have wasted a day to some people. But to some people, that day was very important, because the Bible we read says, I am the Lord that gives you the rains in their time. I will give you the latter rains and the former rains. Because it's possible to have rains now, and then the next thing, there is rain needed after planting, meaning that you enter drought and whatever you planted disappears. So it was not just a contention for, oh, give us rain. It was both the planting and the harvesting rain, so that we can have food.
But the rain that's raining right now, I hope Kenyans know, this always happens in March and April. In Nairobi, kuna kuwaga na mvua.
But there was a delay. In Limuru, let me tell you, in Limuru, it begins to rain in Feb and early March. We've stayed January, February. The rains have come at this time.
So according to any prayer,
it has interfered. Personally, I believe life operates also under divine interventions. And that's why when COVID came, science was almost collapsing. Of course, we know this was created in the lab. Now we are looking at intelligence without morality. And we also know now it is the whole concept of now people using science to control and manipulate the world. And I will say, because you've mentioned something very powerful. When we look at what we call the elites of the world, they will always use what divides and what unites. In some areas, they will use religion. In some areas, they will use race. We consider the West very intellectual. But in the intellectualism, how can a man who has a PhD still sees a black man as an enemy because of his coloring? You know, at that area, politics are based on race. You have this leader is a racist. The other one is a what they call a traditionalist, and that has shaped. You go to China, it's about economic classes. People vote. Even India, they vote according to economic classes. What I will say, spirituality is universal. Religion is now what becomes regional. But everywhere people have built whatever we call religion, it was in pursuit of spirituality. And the Bible is the only book out of my own research that gives total description of spirituality. The Bible will give you the origin of evil, the existence of evil, the reason of evil, the consequences of evil, and the Bible will give you the origin of light, the origin of righteousness, the existence, and how there is a contention between what we call the two kingdoms. It gives it in fullness. And the only two literatures that are there, presented to us that try to describe spirituality. Because when we go to Buddhism, it is the way of life of their leader, Buddha. So they try to pursue that culture. When you go to other spirituality, it is built around a personality. But when you come now to Bible and sometimes even the Quran, you realize the narrative is almost the same. But I said Islam began 500 AD after the death of Jesus. So we begin to see the Bible as the ancient literature that gave birth to explanations and is also verified even scientifically as a book that offers alternative thinking even to intellectuals. I love some nations that have embraced creation as a theory.
Because could I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Our colonialists, aka Britain, banned creationism from schools. Unajua hivyo? 8 years ago, they banned it. They say they don't want any kid who are Britain who believe that Earth is 6,000 years old, and they don't want any kid to think that humans were created. They want
you see,
kids to understand evolution,
and
they want them to understand that the universe is super old.
Like
a lot of things. Kuzata tukiangalia, I think ni the moon ndio waga ina go away from Earth by 1 centimeter every year, I think. These are everything that can be tested. Like, we have enough equipment right now to see why the moon is going away, and to see why, because gravity ya moon ndio cause tides. Sindio? So hizi vitu zote, there are things that can be studied. But before I forget, you talked about seeing an uncle, a cousin, and what. And you know, shida hizi vitu zote waganini, there's never any documentary evidence, because I always
I'm talking
say,
about relatives.
Ninakwambia
inajua kani ningekwambia kwa mshirika alikam, I'm talking about a relative.
Mngeshoot tuone hii hole ilikuwa na heart, tuone this whole process, then you can come to me as a skeptic and I'll believe you.
Now I'll tell you the truth, because the father is a doctor. They have the photos of how the heart was before, and they have the photo of how the heart is after.
So those evidences are machine haikuwa defective, because I think there's the same guy Neil deGrasse Tyson alisemaga hivyo, like every time anasikiaga mtu someone was prayed for akakuwa healed, anasemaga most probably it was a misdiagnosis.
So that means if we are using scientific machines to misdiagnose, also we can't believe in science.
Can you
also say the moon is not moving? Can that also be a misdiagnosis? Because you're talking about if there is machine error, then science has to be subjected to a lot of questions.
But Kenya ni corruption. Nizapata mtu alikuwa nafaa kununua inka kununua.
You see, if it's my cousin, I have no reason to try to fake miracles. In fact, the reason why we don't document healings is because we are not the healer. I don't call you and say today you'll be healed. There's one that heals, and we accept we are not the healer. Have I prayed for people and they died? Yes, because I have no authority over life. So I have to accept that I'm just partnering with a divine being who is more powerful than the situation, and we believe, and he will move in his own divine wisdom. Now, the reason why, you see, the only way you can push atheism is when you take alternative thinking. And that alternative thinking is now begin to push the philosophies of science. I believe it's academic.
But we are all born atheists. So it's religion that's foreign to us, not atheism.
It's okay, and we're all born without science. Even science is foreign to us if we go that path. I believe it's academic fear when you begin to cancel. And now this for me is persecution. It's academic. It's academic fear when you begin to cancel narratives that challenge the concept you're believing in, and we can also prove our narrative. There are nations that have adopted Big Bang. They have adopted creationalism,
China, and Japan.
They have adopted it. So personally, when I begin to see what is happening globally, we want to create scientific zombies, people who will never think for themselves. But let me explain. We want to pump a certain perspective of life so that they view life on this perspective. I'm born again. I read the Bible, but I still read scientific journals. I've not permitted what I believe in to 100% dictate my perspective of life. I still want to view medical science as a solution that has come to help humanity. That is science. And when you look after the concept of medical science, many diseases were tamed. But I also want to look at that intelligence was also God-given. That even the intelligence that man has, if curbed in the right way, that intelligence can bring civilizations that are beneficial, and that intelligence can also create a virus in the lab and also bring death. So it depends on what moral ground is the intelligence founded. So what I believe is that when we look at intellectualism, we must accept every source of information. Like you see, I'm sitting here, I'm not forcing what I know and believe as the absolute truth. And you're also not pushing it. So I'm saying why I believe, you're saying why you believe. But now you can imagine if we came from a realm whereby either science was banned and you are not supposed to question.
Kids,
where we are saying in this school we teach creationalism, science is a lie, these are fictions, and this is what we need to believe.
I think what happened with Japan, not Japan, with Britain, was they felt like they were going back. It came to mathematics and science. so to make sure that they catch up, because what has happened is India and China have been moving very fast, and India is because at some point you have to be like, hey, mungu tena na ng'ombe hapana, this makes no sense. So you have more Indians moving away from their traditional religions and more Indians practicing STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
But you see, Indians don't have a religion. They just buy to spiritualism.
So nacheki alafu, so now with that Britain, America walikuwa na feel ni kama wanabaki behind, because hata inasemekanaga one of the most developed countries that's an abnormally inakuwaga America, because America is religious and developed. But you see now the four founding fathers of America walisemanga we have to separate church and state, that will never make any laws based on